The cliff's edge crumbled under Haley's boot like a promise breaking, sending pebbles skittering into the abyss of the Sierra Nevada gorge. "Adeline, I can't do this anymore," she whispered, her voice cracking against the wind-whipped pines, eyes locked on mine as if I'd been the one holding her back all along. In that split second, with the Spanish sun bleeding orange across her tear-streaked face, I realized our friendship had been a lie we'd both been telling ourselves for years. It started as the dumbest escape plan two broke millennials from opposite coasts could dream up. Me, Adeline Reyes, 28 and freshly ghosted by my latest almost girlfriend in San Francisco's foggy haze, where every coffee shop date felt like auditioning for a role in someone else's rom-com. I'd packed my life into a backpack and bolted to Spain on a whim, chasing the kind of clarity you only find in places where no one knows your last name. Haley, my straight-as-an-arrow bestie from her chaotic New York life, tagged along because her boyfriend of 5 years, that smug tech bro named Ethan, had just dropped the bomb. "I need space to figure out who I am." As if space wasn't code for screwing his yoga instructor in Brooklyn. We met in Madrid, the city pulsing with that electric mix of old-world stone and new-world hustle, tapas bars spilling laughter onto cobblestones, flamenco guitars wailing from hidden doorways. Haley arrived at the airport looking like a J.Crew catalog exploded, blonde waves tied back in a messy bun, oversized sunglasses hiding puffy eyes, and a carry-on stuffed with enough athleisure to outfit a CrossFit cult. "Addie," she squealed, tackling me into a hug that smelled like vanilla lattes and unresolved heartbreak. I laughed, burying my face in her shoulder, because that's what we did, patched each other's wounds with bad jokes and worse decisions. "Spain, baby," I said, pulling back to grin at her. "No Ethans allowed. Just us, sangria, and enough mountains to make us forget we're adults." She linked her arm through mine as we navigated the throng of tourists. "Promise me no deep talks. I just want to hike until my legs give out and pretend I'm not a total cliché." "Deal. But if you start humming Taylor Swift, I'm pushing you into the nearest fountain." Our plan was simple: fly into Granada, rent a beat-up Fiat, and drive into the Sierra Nevada for a 4-day trek. I'd read about it in some glossy travel mag, ancient Moorish trails winding through almond groves and jagged peaks, where the air tasted like wild thyme and redemption. Haley, ever the planner, had mapped it out on her phone: moderate difficulty, stunning views, and zero cell service to force us offline. Therapy via altitude, she'd texted me a week before. I didn't argue. Anything to drown out the echo of my ex's last text: "You're too intense, Addie. I like chill." The drive from Granada was a fever dream of hairpin turns and terracotta villages clinging to hillsides like forgotten prayers. We blasted a playlist I'd curated: Hosier for the soulful climbs, Chapel Roan for the ironic pop anthems that made Haley belt out choruses about bad habits. By the time we parked at the trailhead near Capolera, the late afternoon sun was gilding the olive trees, and Haley had cracked open like a sun-warmed peach. "Look at this," she breathed, slinging her pack over one shoulder. The path ahead snaked upward, flanked by sheer rock faces etched with the ghosts of ancient aqueducts. "It's like we're in a painting. Or a movie where the girls get lost and find themselves." I adjusted my straps, feeling the familiar thrill of the unknown settle in my chest. "Just don't go full eat pray love on me." I packed the good snacks. We hiked in companionable silence at first, the crunch of gravel under our boots syncing with our breaths. Haley chattered about her job at the ad agency, pitching campaigns for organic kale chips while dreaming of her own graphic novel. I spilled about the barista gig that paid my rent but starved my freelance photography dreams, snapping candids of fog-shrouded bridges that no one bought. It was easy, like slipping into an old flannel. That's what made Haley my anchor: she saw the mess of me and stayed anyway. By dusk on day one, we'd claimed a spot in the Poquera Valley, a crescent of terraced fields cradled by peaks that pierced the twilight like accusations. We pitched our tent by a burbling stream, the water cold enough to numb my fingers as I filled our canteens. Haley unpacked the feast: chorizo and manchego from a roadside market, crusty bread that shattered like glass, and a thermos of Rioja that warmed us from the inside out. "To us," she toasted, clinking her tin mug against mine. Her cheeks were flushed from the wine and the altitude, eyes sparkling under the emerging stars. The unbreakable duo. Straight girl, gay girl, world's weirdest power couple. I chuckled, but something in her tone snagged, like a loose thread. Unbreakable, huh? Till Ethan calls and you fly back to his space. She winced, setting her mug down. Don't. It's complicated. He says I'm too emotional, like that's a flaw. But God, Addie, sometimes I just want to scream at the sky until it listens. The vulnerability hit me sideways. Haley, the girl who'd once laughed off a mugging in the subway with a quip about urban adventure, was fraying at the edges. I reached for her hand across the fire's glow, squeezing. Then scream. Here, no one's judging. Except maybe the goats. She laughed, a watery sound, and leaned her head on my shoulder. We sat like that as the night deepened, the Sierra's silence wrapping around us like a secret. I could feel her heartbeat through her fleece, steady and sure, and for a reckless moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like if she turned to me, not as a friend, but as something more. But Haley was straight, etched in stone, and I was the one who'd learned to love from afar. That night, sleep came in fits. Dreams tangled with the wind's howl, Haley's face morphing into my ex's, the trail dissolving into San Francisco's endless gray. I woke to her stirring, murmuring Ethan's name in her sleep like a curse. By morning, we were back on the path, climbing toward the Refugio Poquera, a stone hut perched like a sentinel at 2,500 meters. The second day blurred into a rhythm of ascent and banter. We dodged mule trains laden with supplies, their bells tinkling like wind chimes in a ghost town. Haley pointed out wild orchids peeking from rock crevices, nature's little rebels, she called them, and I captured it all on my Canon, framing her against the vastness, blonde hair whipping in the breeze, profile sharp as a switchback. Around noon, we crested a ridge overlooking the Valletta Peak, snow-capped even in summer, a white scar against the blue. We collapsed onto a flat boulder, peeling oranges whose juice ran sticky down our wrists. Haley licked her fingers, then froze, catching my gaze. What? She asked, half laughing. Nothing. Just. You're glowing. Spain suits you. She blushed, tucking a strand behind her ear. Or maybe it's the company. Ethan's idea of adventure is upgrading his phone. This is alive. We talked then, really talked, as the sun arced lazy overhead. She confessed the cracks in her relationship, Ethan's late nights at the office that smelled like perfume, the way he'd dismiss her sketches as cute hobbies. I admitted my pattern, falling for women who collected my heart like souvenirs, only to leave it shattered on the mantel. I'm the dramatic one, I joked. Always chasing the plot twist. Haley's eyes softened. You're not dramatic, Addie. You're passionate. That's why I need you, to remind me what it feels like to feel everything. Her words hung there, heavy as the alpine air. I wanted to bridge the gap, to trace the freckles across her nose with my thumb, but the invisible line between us held firm. Straight friend. Best friend. Safe. We pushed on, the trail narrowing into a knife's edge flanked by drop-offs that made my stomach lurch. Haley, bolder than I'd remembered, led the way, her laughter echoing off the walls. Come on, scaredy cat. The view's worth the vertigo. By evening, we reached the Refugio, a squat building of weathered stone where a grizzled Spaniard served lentil stew and thick coffee. The common room buzzed with international trekkers, a German couple debating trail maps, a solo Aussie nursing a twisted ankle. Haley and I claimed a corner table, our legs brushing under the scarred wood. Over second helpings, the wine loosened tongues. A French woman with a buzz cut shared stories of her wife's proposal in the Pyrenees. It made my chest ache with envy. Haley watched me watch them, then leaned in. You ever think about it? Finding someone who gets the whole package? All the time, I said, stirring my coffee to avoid her eyes. But it's like. The good ones are always taken. Or straight. She snorted. story of my life. Except mine are just unavailable. The subtext simmered, unspoken. That night, in the bunkhouse's dim light, I lay awake listening to her breathe beside me on the shared mattress. Her hand found mine in the dark, a platonic anchor, but my pulse thrummed like a warning. Day 3 dawned crisp, the promise of the summit pulling us from our sleeping bags. We set out at first light, the path a steep scramble toward the Mulhacen, Spain's highest peak. The air thinned, each step a negotiation with gravity. Haley faltered once, her boots slipping on loose scree, and I caught her elbow, steadying. "Got you," I murmured. She grinned up at me, breathless. My hero. The flirtation was harmless, I told myself. Playful banter between friends who'd shared too many sunsets. But as we crested the final ridge, the world unfolding in a panorama of jagged sierras and distant Mediterranean haze, something shifted. We stood shoulder to shoulder, packs shed, the wind tugging at our clothes like insistent fingers. "This is it," Haley said, voice hushed. "The top of everything." I nodded, throat tight. Below us, the valleys we traversed looked like veins on the earth's skin, carrying secrets we'd whispered along the way. "Feels like we could rewrite our stories from up here." She turned to me then, eyes fierce and searching. "Adeline. What if I told you mine's not what you think?" My heart stuttered. "What do you mean?" She stepped closer, the space between us charged like the storm clouds gathering on the horizon. "Ethan. He's not the reason I'm messed up. It's me. I've been lying to everyone. To him. To myself. And to you." The words landed like a rock slide. I searched her face, those wide blue eyes, the tremble in her lower lip, and saw the truth I'd buried under layers of denial. Haley wasn't straight. Or maybe she was, and this was the cruelest twist yet. "Haley. I kissed a girl once," she blurted, the confession tumbling out. "In college. It was electric. But I panicked, shoved it down, picked the safe path. Ethan was easy. Predictable. But up here, with you, God, Addie, you've always been the one who saw me. The real me." Time fractured. The wind howled, but all I heard was the roar in my ears. I'd loved her in silence for years, a low hum beneath our friendship, dismissed as loyalty. Now, here she was, unraveling the map we'd drawn together. I cupped her face, thumbs brushing her cheeks, and kissed her, soft at first, tentative, tasting salt and possibility. She kissed back, fierce and starving, hands fisting in my shirt as if I'd vanish. The world narrowed to her, the curve of her mouth, the hitch in her breath, the way she melted against me like she'd been waiting for this as long as I had. We broke apart gasping, foreheads pressed. "What now?" I whispered. She smiled, shaky but real. "Now we figure it out. Together." But joy is a fragile peak, and the descent always brings shadows. The euphoria carried us down the mountain like a tailwind, but cracked spiderweb through it by the time we hit the lower trails. Haley chattered non-stop, about ditching Ethan's calls, about maybe coming out to her family over Thanksgiving turkey, about us grabbing falafel in Granada and pretending this was just the beginning. I nodded, high on the altitude drop and her hand brushing mine, but doubt gnawed at the edges. Was this real, or just the Sierra's magic, a mirage born of isolation and red wine? We camped that night in a hidden alcove off the trail, a shallow cave mouth framed by ferns and the trickle of a spring. The stars wheeled overhead, indifferent witnesses, as we unrolled our sleeping bags side by side. No bunkhouse barriers this time. Haley zipped ours together without asking, her grin sheepish. "For warmth," she said, but her eyes said more. We talked until the fire died to embers, voices low and laced with wonder. She traced patterns on my arm with her fingertip, lazy swirls that sent sparks up my spine. "I used to watch you," she admitted, voice barely above the crickets. "At that party in college, when you danced with that redhead. You looked so free. I was jealous, not of her, but of how you owned it. I propped on my elbow, studying her in the moonlight. And I watched you pretend. Brushing it off like it was nothing. It killed me a little. She winced. I'm sorry. I was scared. Still am. What if I screw this up? What if I'm not enough? You're everything, I said, meaning it. We kissed again, slower this time, mapping each other with the reverence of explorers. Her skin was warm silk under my palms, her sighs a language I'd longed to learn. It felt sacred, not rushed, two souls syncing after years of parallel lines. Morning brought practicality. We broke camp with the sun, packs heavier with unspoken futures. The trail wound through pine-scented forests, the air thick with the scent of resin and earth. Haley hummed off-key, linking her pinky with mine at every stream crossing. Think we can make this work back home? She asked, kicking a pebble. New York and San Fran are worlds apart. We'll bridge it, I promised. Weekend flights, midnight FaceTimes. I've got frequent flyer miles from all those ghostings. She laughed, but her eyes flickered, a shadow of the old Haley, the one who hedged bets. We pushed on, the path flattening into meadows dotted with purple wildflowers. By midday, we stumbled on a shepherd's hut, its thatched roof sagging like a weary hat. An old Andalusian with a face like cracked leather offered us goat cheese and figs, his Spanish a melodic rumble. Haley practiced her phrases, charming him with "Gracias, señor," while I snapped photos, her kneeling to pet his border collie, sun filtering through the leaves like grace. As we hiked out, my phone buzzed, miracle of miracles, a signal pocket. Texts from home, my roommate asking about rent, a client chasing edits on a shoot. Reality intruding. Haley's lit up too, and her face fell. Ethan, she muttered, silencing it. He wants to talk when I get back. The name landed like frost. About? She shrugged, too casual. Space, I guess. Or not. I don't know. I swallowed the lump. You gonna tell him? Not yet. Not like this. Phone call from a mountain feels wrong. Fair enough, I told myself. But the seed of unease took root, sprouting thorns as the miles ticked by. That evening, we descended into the Barranco de Poquera, the gorge walls rising like cathedral spires. The trail hugged the river, foam white against basalt, and we stopped to swim in a natural pool, the water shockingly cold. Haley splashed me, shrieking, her laughter echoing off the stones. I tackled her gently, pinning her in the shallows, our bodies slick and close. For a moment, it was perfect, wet hair clinging, her legs wrapping around my waist, kisses tasting of river minerals. But as we dried by the bank, toweling off in the fading light, her phone buzzed again. Insistent. She glanced at it, then away, but not before I saw the preview. Miss you, babe. Spain sounds fun. Can't wait to hear all about it. Love, E. My stomach twisted. Answer it, I said, forcing lightness. Before he sends a search party. She hesitated, then typed a quick reply, pocketing it. Just said I'm alive. No drama. We ate in silence, tinned sardines and almonds, the fire's crackle filling the gaps. Haley poked at the flames, her profile etched in orange. Addie. About us. This feels huge, but back home. It's still huge, I cut in. Distance doesn't erase what happened. I know. I need time to process. To untangle everything. Time. The word echoed like a warning bell. I nodded, staring at the stars pricking the velvet sky. We'd built this fragile thing on a mountaintop, gravity had a way of testing foundations. The final day dawned with a vengeance, low clouds scudding in, the air heavy with the threat of rain. We broke camp early, the trail a muddy slog back to Capolera. Haley was quieter, her steps mechanical, phone checked every half hour like a compulsion. I tried jokes, think the goats unionized yet? But they fell flat, absorbed by the mist. By the ridge where we'd first kissed, the storm broke. Rain lashed sideways, turning the path to slurry. We hunkered under a overhang, packs as shields, water streaming down our faces. "This is biblical," Haley shouted over the roar, but her laugh was forced. I pulled her close, arms around her waist. "Hey. We're okay. Storms pass." She nodded against my shoulder, but when she pulled back, her eyes were stormy too. "Adeline, I called Ethan last night. While you were asleep." The world tilted. Rain hammered my skull, but it was nothing compared to the ache blooming in my chest. "What?" It was weak. I was scared, the signal flickered, and I just needed to hear a voice. He asked about the trip, and I told him about the hikes, the views. "And you?" "And me?" My voice cracked, small. She looked away, rain mingling with tears. "I said you were amazing. My rock." But then he proposed. Over the phone. Said the space made him realize he couldn't lose me. A ring's waiting in New York. Betrayal isn't always a knife, sometimes it's a slow unraveling, thread by thread. I'd known, deep down, the comfort of the known, the fear of the leap. But hearing it, here on this godforsaken ledge, shattered something irrevocable. "So what now?" This, I gestured between us, rain slick and raw, was what? A mountain fling. "No." She grabbed my arms, desperate. "It was real. You are real. But Ethan. He's my life. 5 years, Addie. Our friends, our apartment." I panicked. I said yes. The gorge below mocked me, a yawning mouth. I wrenched free, the wind stealing my breath. "You kissed me. You said." "I know. God, I know." She sobbed, reaching again, but I stepped back, the edge too close. "I love you, as a friend. More than that, maybe. But I'm not brave like you. I'm sorry. I'm so damn sorry. Sorry." The word dissolved in the downpour, worthless as wet ash. I turned, boots slipping on the mud, and started down alone. "Go back to your life, Haley. I'll find my own way." She called after me, "Adeline, wait." But the storm swallowed it, and I let the distance grow. Hours blurred, rain-soaked descents, blisters blooming like accusations, the Fiat's keys a cold weight in my pocket when I reached the car first. I drove to Granada in a daze, checking into a pension alone, the room smelling of mildew and regret. Haley texted as night fell, "Please talk to me. I messed up. I love you." I stared at the screen until it blurred, then blocked the number. Not out of spite, but survival. Love like ours, unspoken, then spoken too soon, was a cliff without a bottom. Weeks bled into months, the Sierra's scars fading to faint lines on my skin, but the one in my heart etched deeper. Back in San Francisco, the fog rolled in like an old friend, muting the edges of everything. I threw myself into work, freelance gigs shooting weddings for strangers who promised forever, their vows a bitter echo. Nights, I'd scroll old photos, Haley mid-laugh on that boulder, her eyes crinkled with unburdened joy. Delete. Repeat. She tried reaching out through mutuals at first, a concerned DM from our college group chat, a "saw this and thought of you" meme forwarded by a cousin. I let them pile up, unanswered, until the silence became its own answer. Ethan posted their engagement on Instagram 6 weeks later, a candid of Haley in a sundress, ring glinting like a taunt, caption reading "She said yes, again. Forever starts now." I unfollowed, but the image burned, her smile wide, but her eyes distant, like she was posing for someone else's dream. Thanksgiving came, a forced cheer of turkey and bad football on my roommate's ancient TV. I flew solo, dodging questions about Spain with quips about near-death mule encounters. But in the quiet moments, stirring gravy, watching rain streak the window, I grieved. Not just for the what-ifs, but for the Haley I'd known before, the girl who'd sneak me into dive bars for karaoke duets, who'd cry over rom-coms and swear off men forever. Had that been a performance too? Winter thawed into a reluctant spring, the city blooming in defiant pinks and yellows. I started therapy on a whim, some non-profit spot in the Mission, where the counselor, a no-nonsense Latina with tattoos snaking up her arms, called my patterns self-sabotage wrapped in wanderlust. You chase highs, Mija, she said one session, but you gotta learn to sit with the lows. What did Spain teach you, really? Everything. Nothing. That love isn't a summit you conquer, it's the valley you navigate, mud and all. I picked up my camera again, not for pay, but for me, street portraits of queer kids in the Castro, their laughter a bomb. One evening, framing a young couple sharing a bench, hands intertwined without apology, I felt the first stir of something like peace. Then, uninvited, Haley resurfaced. Not a text, but a package, FedEx from New York, no return address until I tore it open. Inside, my forgotten Canon lens, wrapped in a note on graph paper, her old sketchpad stock. Addie. I don't expect forgiveness. Hell, I don't deserve it. But I need you to know, I called it off. The wedding, the whole facade. Ethan was furious, called me selfish, unstable. Maybe he was right. But up there, with you, I glimpsed what real felt like. Terrifying. True. I'm in therapy too. Figuring out labels, or maybe ditching them. Turns out, I'm bi, or fluid, or whatever, the point is, I was hiding from myself. And hurting you in the process was the worst part. If you ever want to talk, or yell, or just send a goat emoji. I'm here. No strings. Just Haley. P.S. Keep shooting. Your eye sees the beauty in the broken. Wish I could too. Tears hit the paper before I finished, smudging the ink. I sat on my fire escape, the city humming below, trolleys clanging, distant laughter from a taqueria. Part of me wanted to burn it, to let the ashes scatter like those cliff pebbles. But another part, the stubborn, hopeful Reyes core, slotted it into the drawer with my undeveloped film rolls. Not ready, but not gone. Summer arrived sticky and unyielding, the kind that drives you to the coast for cold plunges and bonfires. I booked a solo trip to Big Sur, chasing redwoods and tide pools, but fate, or algorithms, intervened. A pop-up ad for a queer film fest in Barcelona, screening indie shorts on identity and exile. Spain again. The universe's cruel joke, or maybe its nudge. I went. Packed light, one carry-on, my Nikon, and that note folded in my wallet like a talisman. Barcelona buzzed with pride flags still fluttering from June, the Ramblas alive with buskers and the scent of paella sizzling on griddles. The fest was intimate, a converted warehouse near the Gothic Quarter, fairy lights strung like stars, air thick with popcorn and possibility. I slipped into the back row for the evening block, heart pounding as the lights dimmed. The first short flickered, grainy footage of two women on a misty trail, hands brushing, voices overlapping in confession. My breath caught. Credits rolled, directed by H. Whitaker. In memory of unspoken paths. Haley. Of course. Intermission hit, and there she was, across the room, chatting with a programmer, her hair cropped short in a pixie that sharpened her cheekbones. She looked lighter. Freer. No ring, no shadows. Our eyes met over a sea of heads, and time folded, the Sierra rushing back in a torrent of wind and rain. She wove through the crowd, tentative. Addie. You came. I nodded, throat dry. Your film. It's beautiful. Honest. She ducked her head, flushing. Inspired by a certain hike. With a certain someone who wouldn't let me off easy. We stepped outside, the night air cool off the harbor. Street lamps cast pools of gold on the stone, and for a moment, we were just two women, versions of ourselves we'd rebuilt from ruins. "I'm sorry," she started, but I held up a hand. "Me first." I was angry, hurt. But mostly, I was scared you'd slip back into safe. You didn't. That's everything. She exhaled, shaky. I almost did. After the breakup, I ghosted everyone. Moved to a sublet in Queens, started sketching again. Therapy dragged it out, the fear, the shame. But realizing I could love women, love you, without it defining or destroying me. That's the real summit. We walked then, aimless along the waterfront, the sea whispering approvals. She told me about the divorce drama, Ethan's lawyers, the awkward handoff of shared mugs. I shared my shoots, the girl from the Castro Fest who'd become a maybe date, soft and steady. No rush. No cliffs. By the pier's end, under a canopy of sails, she stopped. "Friends?" she asked, voice small. I smiled, pulling her into a hug, bone deep, no edges. "More than that, someday. When we're ready. But yeah. Friends. Always." She hugged back, fierce, and in that embrace, I felt it, forgiveness not as erasure, but as expansion. We'd betrayed each other, me with assumptions, her with fear, but from the wreckage, something human bloomed. Not a fairy tale ending, but a real one, messy, merciful, marked by mountains we'd climbed together. As the city lights danced on the waves, I thought of the Sierra's gorges, how they'd carved beauty from stone over eons. Us too. Scars and all, we'd endure.